The One Year Bible Storybook by Virginia J. Muir. Today is our last story in the Old Testament in the One Year Bible Storybook. So, if you've been missing stories, go back and subscribe to my channel and go all the way through the Old Testament. Now, tomorrow, I can't wait. We're going to start the New Testament. So be sure and tell your friends that we're going to have Bible stories every day from the New Testament starting tomorrow. Today's story is Joyful Celebrations. It comes from the book of Nehemiah. This was really a wonderful time for the people of Judah. Just think, God had made their Babylonian and Persian rulers to be kind to them. Their captivity was over. Many of them had come back to live in their own land. The walls of Jerusalem were built so the city could be protected from their enemies. Workers had rebuilt the temple so the people could worship and serve God in His own house. They had even brought back the gold and silver bowls and cups and many other treasures that had been stolen from the old temple. No wonder the Israelites were so happy. They had several celebrations to show their joy. When the walls were finished, they had a parade around the top of the wall. Some people were marching in one direction and some were marching the other. They played trumpets and harps and drums and sang songs of praise. Then they marched to the temple and made sacrifices to God. They also had a Thanksgiving celebration called the Feast of Trumpets. During that time, Ezra held the book of the law and he read it aloud to all the people. He read for hours as people stood and listened. They all told God they were sorry for the times they had disobeyed Him, and now they would try to do better. Next, they signed a paper promising certain things. We will obey God, not mingle with the heathen tribes, not marry ungodly women, give the Lord 1/10 of our money and grain, and keep the Sabbath day and keep it holy from the rest. Now, they still had many years of trouble after this. Even though the people of Israel were back home, they were not really free because they paid taxes to the Persian kings who still ruled them. We don't see anything in the Bible about this for the next 400 years. However, we know a lot about what happened to God's people because history books tell the events of those times. One government followed another, but always the Jews were servants. The Greeks, the Egyptians, the Syrians, each ruled the Jews for a time. Then, for about 100 years, they became free again, while a family of Jewish leaders called the Maccabees kept invaders out of Judah. Once more, the people could worship God in the temple. Think back over the stories about God's people. Do you remember what usually happened to them when things were going well? Were they grateful? And did they show it by being thankful to God? If you answered no, you are absolutely right. Well, it happened again. The Jews neglected to worship God, and they fought among themselves. So God let another foreign army conquer them. This time it was the Romans, one of the strongest governments in all of history. The Roman Empire sent a soldier named Herod to be king of Judah. Herod was cruel, and the people hated him. He tried to make friends by rebuilding the temple, which by now was 500 years old and in bad condition. He spent 9 years on it, and it really was beautiful. But the Jews still were unhappy under Roman rule. how they longed for a great leader to come and free them. Be sure and turn in tomorrow for the beginning of the New Testament.